All right. There we go.
Is the audience got audio? Looks like
Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me out there in digital Netherland?
Hey, Internet. What's up?
What? All right, so hi everybody. This is Geekdomo, Locke, and Zaphos. Another episode of Into the Portal, EverQuest Next. We're going to talk about what we saw this weekend at PAX and what we didn't see this weekend at PAX, which was a lot. We saw.
Hopes.
Yeah, we did.
High hopes and expectations.
Dash to the rocks below the cliff.
I'd like to say it hurt, but I'm getting used to the cycle of abuse we've been getting from Sony. I guess they want to talk about Landmark at the moment, don't they? And they don't want to talk about any other systems. So that's what we got.
Yeah. Oh, they're saying Locke is low. Why is Locke low?
everybody's always happier when they're high.
Yeah, Locke needs a mic boost. Boost your mic a little bit there, Locke.
Yeah, I've fixed my camera, and now I've broken my microphone, so I'm back on the headset.
They can't hear you or Zaphos. Okay, give me a second. This is so weird because they should be able to hear. They can't hear Zaphos. Say something, Zaphos.
Hey, this is Zaphos.
All right, I have you turned all the way up. Why can't they hear you? All right, give me a second here. See if I can figure out why.
Oh no, not again. Right.
Now you went louder. What happened?
Can you guys hear me?
I talk louder. It's on the auto setting on Skype. I don't know.
Oh. Let's see.
Can you guys hear me?
Audio settings. I've got you turned all the way up. Say some stuff there, Mr. Zaphos.
Can you guys hear me now? In chat, let me know if you can hear me okay.
Make sure the mic is clear of the beard. All right, good.
It is clear. It should be clear. We're better. We're good. Better.
Okay.
Says better.
Yay.
All right. Well, we can't have a show without having some sort of technical difficulties. It's our calling card, actually.
But it's okay.
It'd be a waste of a Monday night.
Exactly.
I have a pink shirt, so it's okay.
Yes, rocking the pink shirt today. There's nothing wrong with the pink shirt. Okay, so what we were talking about before people couldn't hear us. Hello, welcome to EverQuest Next Into the Portal, an EverQuest Next discussion. We're going. Now I'm twice as loud as everybody else. Oh my God! Hold on.
Oh Lord.
Willkommen et bienvenue, mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, to Into the Portal, the EverQuest Next podcast, brought to you by EverQuest Nexus.
Testes, 1, 2, 3.
Testicles.
How's it sound?
The Greek demigod of nut kicking.
Am I better now? Testing. Geekdomo.
And Christmas spirit. Despite, of course, existing thousands of years before Christmas.
All right, everybody says it sounds good. Okay, let's get back to the thing. All right, so we were just talking about PAX and our our lack of information we got there. So go ahead, Locke, you were saying. Let's start over.
I was just saying words and kind of trying to fill it out. We're talking about PAX. Okay, so
Yeah, PAX.
What we got at PAX, we had the interview between Amit, Terry Markles, and David Georgeson, didn't we? Which kind of I felt covered a lot of old ground. Like we saw that they were making progress in what they were doing, but I mean I can't remember anything super new coming out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But there was another interview with Athene as well.
Yeah, I saw that.
Go and watch Athene. But it was actually one of the best interviews I've seen with David Georgeson so far. And again, it was covering old ground, but you can kind of see how they're refining the message down now, where they're saying we're talking about Landmark. That's what we're really excited about. It's coming very soon. You're going to be able to do incredible things. Like they always say we really want to take it above and beyond anything anyone's seen. Excuse me, too much Dr. Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
They want to take it above and beyond anything anyone can see. That they're saying they want They want it to be like walking through the imaginations of players. They've hinted at combat being in it. They've hinted at AI being in it. The real estate, So I think, I'm getting more excited for Landmark than I was originally. When I first heard about it, it was a building tool, and it was going to be, Minecraft with other people around. And no, it's an MMO. It's going to have all of these extra features. So I think, the main thing I've taken away from PAX is a new level of excitement for what Landmark will be capable of. So yeah, that was a lot of words.
It's all right. What about you, Zaphos? What did you think of the information that came out?
It was okay. It was just okay. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more, like a beta announcement.
That'd be great.
Something like that. That would have been really cool. I'm still looking for that roadmap. I'm still looking for that, hey guys, here's our open roadmap. I'll Farfall, also from Red 5 Studios, did a pretty good job of this in their open kind of development process as well. But just saying, here's where we are today, here's where we're going to be in 3 months here. And I understand there's some requirements around that for, NDA and protection at this stage, but still, I'd like to know a little bit more about that. Besides that not being announced, I think it was a lot of information we've heard before, a few mistaken bits of information that maybe shouldn't have been announced, but overall, just as Locke said, continue to build a hype, which is great. It needs hype built. I don't want to see another SOE niche game. Not that EverQuest originally was, but by any stretch it was a market leader, but I want to see EQNexus also be a market leader, not a game for diehard fans of previous titles.
Right. Yeah, they're trying to include everybody with this particular title. I would just wish that they had given us just a few more tidbits. It almost seems like they just, we can show the clips as we get going here, but I've only got 4 clips of new stuff that they didn't show in any previous thing, and they kind of just confirmed some of the things that we already knew, so it wasn't like any drastic great information.
I suppose it's still really so early though, and the official line, which is another thing David Georgeson has been better at saying, is they can make the game themselves. Absolutely, they're fully staffed up and prepared to see the whole development through themselves. But they're saying they want to see what players come up with in order to make that the kind of central thing about the game. They're using Landmark as a tool to build the game with the community, and they're saying, we want to see these incredible things that, groups of 30 people in guilds that have been building stuff in Minecraft for years. I mean, can you imagine? It's the same thing. It's like taking the blocks and placing the blocks. You look at some of the Minecraft builds that we've had and some of the amazing talent that's been shown there.
Mm-hmm.
It is beyond me. It is beyond my artistic and creative comprehension to even begin to imagine what we're going to be seeing after 6 months of everything overlap. People competing for real money in that sort of environment, and huge groups of people always wanting to be the best. Real estate being bought and sold. People building on top of other people's imaginations and other people's creativity, that in a fully fledged MMO where you can make new friends to work on new projects, and they've got they say they've got an economy system in there. They're going to be adding new features to the game as they come along, which is another thing we've got to talk about. Landmark, the idea of also really being a beta for a lot of systems in EverQuest,
right,
which is fantastic.
It is.
Like I said, I'm getting more excited for the possibilities of Landmark and what that means for EverQuest Next.
Yeah, it is sort of like an open beta that they're helping to develop the game itself, and I like that part of it. I don't mind helping them develop it, and we get to play it at the same time, so not a problem to me. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm totally looking forward to getting in there just to dig around. I just want to dig a hole in the ground and just see what's down there.
I want to find one of those caves and see what that's.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Exactly.
And there's other people at the same time going, I want to build every USS Enterprise.
Right.
I heard someone mentioned in chat my Dwarven Steakhouse,
mm-hmm.
which, my mind's expanding. I want to do my whole kind of I've always wanted to do, the little Skyrim towns that are in, right by the water, and there's boats and stuff. I want to do a dwarf version of that, which is where it's the exit to the mine, out to the water, and it goes out, and it's like a dwarven port town. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to I want to make the house that the hobbits live in, like one of those under the hill houses. I just think it would be so cool because I've always wanted to own one and live in one myself. So yeah, I
Come
think
to England, man.
they're all like that. It's everywhere, right? Every house is just like
that's
that.
what I live in. I'll tell you. I'll tell you.
It's your hobbit hole.
Well, I've got this. You know, this hobbit hole, which is my summer house, and then obviously during winters we go to the castle.
Yep.
All the Europeans in chat will confirm this.
Yeah, everybody in the UK has a castle that they live in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, do you think we're going to hear anything new anytime soon, or do you think they're just going to kind of tease us for now?
As far as anything soon?
Yeah. Do you think do you know of another release or another event that's coming up that we should hear something on?
Well, I mean, they've got Dragon Con, but that's pretty niche, isn't it? And
yeah.
then there's no other big sort of convention till next year. You know, there was John Smedley at SOE Live did say this year. He said later this year for Landmark, but the line seems to have been very firmly this winter, which
could be January, February.
What does this winter mean? I mean, it's obviously in their best interest to get this out in plenty of time before WildStar and Elder Scrolls Online.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to want to get it out of the gate, and if it's not going to be feature complete at launch as well, I think they're going to need some time to hook people in if they're not gonna sort of lose a big chunk as the other big shinies come out. So I still feel like we have to hear something soon, but I don't know what capacity that'll be.
Maybe another black box video or something. I don't know. Something
I think we need a little more than that at this point. I mean, you could argue, but it depends on their timeline, right? I mean, if they are really focused on next year, so they've got some time. But if they really do want to bring it out this year and sort of get a little more focus around it, then of course we would expect to hear something. I still remember the dev saying something along the lines of, you might be surprised how quickly beta pops up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was, back August, and here we are all the way at September now.
We've made it pretty far.
It's been a wild ride.
It's been at least 38 days. I think roughly.
That's the thing though.
I'm getting impatient, right?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Still, I mean, it's such a short timeline. I mean, we're everyone here in chat, hey guys, and obviously all of us, we're very firmly in that early adopter camp of people, that were waiting for the big announcement and we're already kind of excited, and now we're we're looking for things to be excited about, and we're devouring every shred of information. But they need that kind of slow ramp up, and they need a bit, in my opinion, they need a bit more of a sort of groundswell of interest and a bit more of a group going on before they really start dropping those big ticket items.
Mm-hmm.
Because they for those real big features, apart from the huge revolutionary features that we've heard about already, for those next kind of big gameplay features, I think they're gonna want a bit more of a buzz going on. But what better way to do that than beta? I just want to get in beta.
Me
I don't
too.
care if all I can do is run around doing backflips. I will be happy at this point.
Exactly, just exploring the world. Real quick, I forgot to mention, everybody who's in the chat, if you want, you can type in question in brackets. Legendary Neurotoxin just did it. And write out your question. We're going to get to a question and answer session later on in the episode. So do that. We have some people in chat that are gathering all the questions up and sending them over for us to read as we get going. All right, sounds good. Let's get on with our topic number 2 then, which is world choices and PvP alignment. So I'm guessing what they're talking about is if you are befriending the kobolds, and every single day you go to the kobolds and you bring them some chocolate and flowers, and they love you, and then you decide to join into a guild or a group with another person who has been killing kobolds, what's that going to mean? Are you suddenly flagged now that you can be killed by the kobolds, or what? What are your thoughts?
Zaphos, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Yeah, I will go first.
Go ahead.
This question. Those nulls, I mean, Yeah, so we have this rose song, we have this book of your deeds throughout time.
Mm-hmm.
We have your actions being tagged. So I think inevitably there's going to be consequences of that, as they've stated so very well. Yeah, I mean, if you go out and kill an entire race, if you are the Knoll Slayer, I think that's going to have a pretty big impact. And I think, are you asking, would you be kill on sight to Knolls? Is that a term that we can use?
Yeah, we can say KOS.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately you definitely will be. The real question for me, I mean, I think that's an easy one to answer. Go out and kill 500 Knolls, they don't like you. I think that there will be, and I would like to see that at an individual level, so at a player level, right? I would like to see that at a guild level.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually like to see a guild become KOS. You fly your guild's colors, and semi-intelligent races can hate on you. I like that. Factions can hate on you. So it's really a sub-extension of factions, right? So I really like that. But the other way around is much more interesting. Can you make friends with the Knolls?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I find really compelling. It's the reverse faction. Can I go out and be a total git? Can I be, can I be the best friend of the orcs, the Knolls, the dragons? Can I help them wipe out players? How far can I be just a rancid git is really what I want to know. And I think that might be an interesting way to quote-unquote grief, right? I mean, I don't want to see griefing in the game too much. It kind of ruins games, and, it's funny for a while. But I would like to see players be able to sort of be empowered to be bad.
Oh, absolutely. That's part of the whole sandbox thing. That if that's your choice and you want to be just the scum of the universe, then you should be able to be.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what they were talking about is, so now you became friends with the Knolls and they're your buddies. Can people now attack you because you're so aligned with the Knolls you now are flagged as an enemy of the world kind of thing? I guess that's what they were kind of...
I think it's a sub-extension, as I said, of factions, right? So it's kind of a reverse sub-extension. So in my book, the answer would be, yes, I hope so. I would like to think so. And if the system is complete, if it's a complete system, then I would expect that to be the case. If it's a linear system and has limitations, then we may see something a little bit different. We may see a brick wall, a quote-unquote invisible factional brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
That just depends on how far in the development they get of the AI plus the faction system combined, plus the ability to track and tag players at a both micro and macro level. So you have being tracked at your own personal level, at your guild level, and at your racial level. So I think that, depending how they decide to track those things, it's going to dictate just whether we can get to that level of granularity. But I think that it would be awesome to have repercussions that are so extreme that basically if you kill all the little furry, fairies, if you're a fairy killer, then, any elf in the game can just kill you without consequence.
Mm-hmm. All right, Locke, are you ready?
Am I up? Oh god. Okay. This is such a big thing because it's a whole question of how a faction's going to work. I've said before, I hope it's not a binary morality thing. I don't want it to be good, evil, and neutral. My personal thing. I don't think that's interesting. The way I'd really like to see it is a less granular version of what Zaphos was explaining, and the reason I say that is for actual gameplay and making it possible to have relationships with players as well as with the world that you're in. I think it'd be very difficult to group if all of you had these different kind of like friends and enemies lists, and I think it'd sort of close off a few too many options as far as socializing with other players. So I think what I would like to see is a sort of political system where you have factions. You're not locked into a faction immediately, and it's not morality based, but you can like fight for a faction and gain favor with a certain faction, but then that makes you lose favor with others, and you create, instead of a linear system like Zafra said, you create a web, but the web is very well defined in terms of what relationships the different factions have with each other. Like, so let's say the dwarves and the goblins that live in the mountains, they've been fighting forever and they hate each other. So if you did something for the dwarves, it'd have a very negative impact with the goblins. And maybe the dwarves and the elves don't like each other very much, but they still kind of they're sort of neutral, like they have to sort of get along. So doing something good for the dwarves, depending what it is, maybe lowers you very slightly with the elves, or maybe does nothing at all, even though technically they're in the same faction. So a sort of web system like that, almost like a political kind of web, where maybe even some of those alliances could start changing. Like that would probably be a sort of system I'd be more interested in than a binary system, or one that was too involved with every single specific player action. Because, like I said, I think then it becomes difficult if you're in a guild with other people, and it starts like tagging you as a guild member because one of your guild buddies decided to go out and grind kobolds for an hour for some reason, and then that'd annoy me.
Yeah,
that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I would agree with Locke on that. The system I described from a more technical point of view is a complete system, but it would be, just like Locke said, it would be very challenging to pull off, because you would have those guilds that would have to be null friendly only. So you'd start to run into some pretty major conflicts and pretty major problems. So at some point you've got to scale that back, and this is what I refer to as deeds in secret. It's kind of a term I like to describe for games that have this kind of a system at a more rudimentary level, where if you were out helping the dwarves to destroy Halas or whatever, right? That's pretty visible to the world. That's a world-changing event. That's kind of a potential rallying call, alteration level type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just off in the forest and this knoll is in your way and you punt it off a cliff, and nobody's there to see it fall, then
did it really happen?
Did it really happen? And are the elves going to really hate you because you secretly punted a knoll? And typically in games, those things are deeds in secret. They may have an impact on you and the gnolls, but they don't have an impact on the elves on how they view you because you killed gnolls in secret. That sort of realistic thread happens to be a better system, one that works more comfortably for players to be able to associate. And especially in a game, I think one of the things we've got to keep in mind is we're still talking in terms of traditional MMOs. Traditional MMOs that aren't voxel-based, procedural-based, and don't have the kind of combat systems that EQNexus is going to have, can do this a little differently, because you click on a player, the player is now tab targeted, and you can attack or not attack. The system can do a check to see whether that's KOS or friendly or whatever. In a game like Cube World, for example, or in a game like EQNext, there's a lot less control because all the voxels can be destroyed. There's large numbers of AoE skills. There's lots of just, there's no tab targeting that we've seen. Those types of environments need to be a little more forgiving, typically.
Sorry, a little bit of a technical glitch there. Yeah, it's all about politics, right? I mean, that's what this is all boiling down to. Is how are they going to track your political affiliation with one particular race or another race or whatever? So that is something we've never seen before, and Storybricks is supposed to be building that into a level that we can't comprehend even yet, supposedly.
Well, that's why a reason why I almost hope they do lock it into factions, even if there are quite a lot of factions, because then you can start working it into like the sort of legal system that I always go on about when we talk about grouping, and doing things that are illegal perhaps would make a certain group dislike you a lot more, whereas another group might not be bothered, like if you were engaged in illegal activity or not. So having those kind of fixed values for your relationship with groups, I think, unless I'm totally underestimating what Storybricks is capable of, and we're thrown into this world where we can be walking down the street in a friendly city where everyone loves us, and then some random junkie tries to shank us in an alley because we've done something to offend him, and that's very compelling gameplay. But if I'm out in the world with 4 people I just met the other day, and then it's like, oh well, we can't go down this way because this faction hates this guy, and we can't go that way because that faction hates this guy. Oh well, I guess we'll
dig a hole.
We'll just dig it. We'll go straight down
and go underneath.
We're under the damn city. I think you gotta. I think we do have to think back a little bit. For example, EverQuest 1, where in fact that was true in many cases. it was hard for certain races and classes to enter friendly, quote unquote, good aligned cities.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And that was a problem. So if you were grouped with those guys, it was like, hey guys, I'll wait out in the outskirts of town while you run in and get some food for us, because he couldn't go into the town without being auto killed. And there was certainly some pretty funny stuff that came from that, and some pretty amusing events. It was really, really cool. But at the same time, I agree, it does create a potential conflict, a potential problem for ease of gameplay. And I think one of the things that game companies got to focus on these days is ease of gameplay, low barrier to entry. When you were the only game on the market, or one of two, I mean, I remember it being, oh, you know what, this is my MMO for the next 5 years. I'm done, I'm not going to play anything else. In fact, I'm not playing anything else, period. That's it, And I would play EQ1, I played Ultima Online, I played World of Warcraft, I played all these other games. And what started to happen as the genre became bigger and more entries into the genre started to exist and more games, the community became more fragmented. And whatever games started to suck a lot and become real failures in a matter of a month, then people started to become less tolerant of taking time out to explore the fact that, hey, I just got shanked by the guard, that at level 1. I think the developers, Jeff Butler in particular, said it's no fun to log into your starting area in EQ1, have it be completely pitch black, and not be a race that can see in the dark. It's not a good player experience. And while people like that kind of thing from time to time, it adds a certain element of coolness, it's a certain immersive feeling, it just today won't fly. Because it's just too tedious for regular players to say, hey, I'm willing to suffer through this, I'll go make dinner and come back when the sun's up. It's just not going to happen. They're just going to be like, oh, F this, I'm out of here.
That's what happened with me trying to get out of Neriac the other day. 40 minutes trying to get out of Neriac. And
it's got to be a balance, right?
Yeah.
And like all things now, we've got to balance the ability to access the game quickly and get addicted quickly and get excited quickly and be able to accomplish things with the immersive journeys that we want to be part of and the experiences we want to be part of. So that's why I don't think we'll see things like corpse runs to the bottom of a well that's covered in water and surrounded by frog locks. I don't think we'll see those types of features where you're going to lose your stuff in 10 minutes. You've got 10 minutes to get the team together and do some MacGyver shit to get this thing rolling. There were some really cool stories that came out of that, but I don't think we'll see things like that today. So why am I telling this story? Because I think ultimately the faction system like Locke and I talked about and other systems within the game are ultimately going to conform to a slightly lower barrier of entry.
Absolutely. All right.
That was a long-ass answer.
It was good. Really good. All right, let's move on to our next one.
Let's do it. I could go for an hour on this.
Yeah, right. We're going to talk now about contested, non-contested, and tagging. Yeah, that question. For those who might not know, there's a roundtable that goes on over at EQNexus website, and the roundtable questions have been really vague, and we all complained that they were really vague. And then so they come out with this question, which was contested, yay or nay? And yeah, that was probably like the worst question I've ever seen on a survey in my life, especially because we have no idea what they're talking about.
I read it and I was confused, and then I was angry, and then I was a little bit hungry. I had a pizza, and then
a whole range of emotions.
I was still confused, and the whole cycle repeated. And it's just my immediate reaction was what contested content, yay or nay? It was 5 words, and how many that poses so many questions.
Specifically because we don't even know.
We have no information.
No point of reference.
We have no information to base any kind of response on. So why ask a question? Why not just say we will have contested content? Tune in to the dev blog next week. Watch the video, read the blog post next week to find out, the exciting ways we're going to implement this in the game. Like, why ask the question? It's meaningless.
Completely meaningless. They were asking us about a feature that they have not described yet, and then hoping that we'll somehow give them an influence of what we think it should be. It's like, what do you think of the new hairstyle we just installed last week? What are you talking about? We haven't even seen it yet. We have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I do like hairstyles, so I guess I'm in favour.
All right, Zappos.
Finn Gaming in chat's just said, I imagine Locke rocking himself curled up in the corner. The question doesn't make sense. But of course, Finn Gaming was here when it happened.
Yes.
He was kind enough to throw a bucket of water on me and
straighten you right out.
And drag me outside.
So,
what do you think?
Made perfect sense to me.
Oh, you loved it, huh?
If you hear my kids screaming in the background, it's because they just read the question.
Yeah.
No, I think I understand why people are confused by this question. I do, because it makes no sense. And I think that the fact that it makes no sense is a good thing. So.
Okay, explain yourself, because I'm like, what?
So here we go.
All right.
So from a developer point of view, if they specify that what they mean by contested is content that you are required to kill to get specific things that you need that other players can kill before you get there. In other words, he who dares wins. The first person gets it wins. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a PvP setup, whichever team kills the other team gets the monster. There were contested elements in games like EverQuest 1 where you had to kill a dragon to get part of your epic quest line item, or you had to do this rare spawn that spawned once every 7 days. And yes, I camped mobs for 7 days in a row. It is not conducive to a productive life.
No. You get flat ass syndrome.
Yeah, and
this is the thing. This is what you're doing right now, though, Zaphos. You make like one little statement, and you go, "Oh yeah, it's really simple. It's just this." And then there's about 50 caveats, and like if there's some maybes afterwards, if it's a PvP system, if it's this, if it's that.
Totally clear.
Well, the raid bosses aren't gonna respawn like we've seen before, so it's not gonna be a question of camping a spot. So that's out the window. Yeah. And now I don't even know what to do anymore. I don't know.
Locke is exploding here. Locke is exploding.
Yeah.
Go ahead, finish your...
Every ounce of my Britishness to keep it inside.
Let him finish. Go ahead.
Locke is overanalyzing.
I'm done.
Paralysis of analysis.
I'm Tyra Banks.
So, oh god, the flicking fingers are back. So basically, if that's what they mean by contested, that's great. So the developers need to know that old EQ style players, people like me who grew up on contested monsters being a part of the MMO experience and loving it. And that's, for example, how vanilla World of Warcraft started. You had lots of contested things, not necessarily contested, rather, let's just call them epic. They took off those things because if you didn't play in a PvP server, they won't, as Locke pointed out. But like you could do the epic quest, you wanted to get rare spawns. They were contested in the sense that if you wanted to get your time lost proto-drake, you had to somehow compete with your fellow men to acquire it. Because it only spawned once in a certain period of time in a certain location. If that's what they mean by contested, I'm all for that, right? I really, really like that system. I think it's a great system, but it needs to be balanced with freely available recurring content as well that allows you to progress in other ways while you're waiting to have access to contested content. I mean, what contested really means is it's a contest. You are aiming to compete with your fellow players for equity. Right?
Mm-hmm. And
player equity is really, really important in a game. It's how you gauge your relative success in the game versus other players. It's how you become a power monger or a warlord or a master brickmaker. Because you have reached the contested mithril blocks and gotten them before other people, and so your bricks are the best. Right?
Right.
So that's what I assume it means by contested. I don't think it has anything to do with PvP at all.
Okay.
I think PvP is irrelevant. So to answer Locke's question, PvP is a separate system that can coexist with contested content or without it. It's not necessarily relevant. The difference would be an instanced piece of content where you zone into an instance. It's yours and your groups. You own it. You run it. The monsters in it give you your loot, and nobody else can take it away from you. It's protected.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you need to have a balance of contested and freely recurring. In sandbox games, we typically don't have instances because they take you out of the sandbox and put you in your private little sandbar or something, whatever the hell that would be called, So they take you out of it. If you think Star Wars Galaxies, which is a big influence, in my opinion, on EQNexus, you're going to think, there are certain things in that game that he who gets there first wins the prize.
Mm-hmm.
The real question is whether those things will be reoccurring or not. So if you kill that monster, can anybody else kill the monster? If you kill the monster, will it respawn? If you kill the monster and it drops X piece of loot, is that piece of loot unique to the world because it will never be created again? And those are all really good questions that I actually hope are true. because that's what gives players equity. And having that equity gives you a sense of reward and accomplishment, and it also helps to define your story. You were there at the Battle of Nagafen. Other people weren't. Those types of things create historic events, they create player equity, they create chronology, they create history. Very long-winded answer, but in my opinion, having a certain amount of contested territory and contested content, could be both of those, is really, really important. The answer needs to be absolutely yes. If it's not, you end up in a World of Warcraft, everybody's equal, everybody's the same, conformity is the way to go, and it sucks.
Sure, I agree absolutely with the sense of player equity. I think that's massively important, and I think like the way that you're describing it to me makes perfect sense, especially for a sandbox environment and the way that EverQuest Next is going to be designed from the little that we know about it. I think there's no possible way they could not have things contested. As David Georgeson said, we never want you to have the same experience twice. So how could the same raid boss pop up in the same place, for someone else to turn up? And then obviously that puts instancing kind of out of the window in terms of repeatable content. So yeah, I think absolutely. Like, you go out in the world, and I think the big thing that you said then that I really liked was the idea of who dares wins. The idea of going out into the unknown, as it will be. Like, those really dangerous areas away from the player centers, away from the rallying calls, where everyone is, going into the deep dark to find the big bad, to take them down. And once they're gone down, they're dead, and that's it. You took their loot, you've got their stuff, you've got the big fancy hat, and everyone knows you the bad man, and that's the end of. And that affects the world as well, because you've beaten that boss. Suddenly, that center of power has been weakened, which allows all of those other players behind you to surge into the area and maybe start experiencing that area as you did. But that big boss, that was our guild that did that.
Exactly, and here's a really, really important point, and this is where a paradigm shift comes in for players, because I've sort of played games where this has been true, and people don't have always the same gear, the same items. There's no conformity to that. It's how you decide to make it. Ultimate creativity, players being able to design their own weaponry based off of building blocks within the world. All of those things take us into something completely different than what modern MMOs have handed to us through, or rather force-fed us through games like World of Warcraft and all the clones that came after it, that took off in a branch of development for the genre and almost killed the genre, in my opinion. The genre today is almost failing as a direct result of constantly chipping away at what players consider to be a quality MMO world. So what I mean by that is, the reason that people freak out when they think that a major boss might never spawn again is because they're still believing that that boss will drop an item that everybody should have.
Right.
And therefore it's unfair that I don't have it because I was at school or work or whatever, right? And that's not the case. That is absolutely not the case. Your ability to have equity in the game and be as powerful as your fellow players should be no way dictated by one boss that you recurringly farm, so that everybody standing in Halas is dressed the same with the same weapons,
same glowy sword.
The same mobs.
Yep.
It is so suck, right? It is just horrible. What we want is a game where you're telling your story, and the ability to tell your story is based on the ability to create unique experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a sticky subject.
Wait.
What?
So we're saying no to the raid finder then?
No raid finder. No raid finder.
I thought we were on the same. No? Okay.
You want a raid finder, or are you being sarcastic?
No, I don't want a raid finder.
Jeez, I was like, holy crap, what are you talking about?
You don't know me at all. What is this?
Yeah, you're freaking me out, man. Don't do that, Locke. You're making me scared. Yeah,
I'm just going to get kicked out the call then. Raid finder.
Hang on. Go on. Yeah, I don't know. It's a sticky subject, isn't it? I think a lot of people are sort of built in one way that they've known. Like, okay, for us who've been playing these MMOs for a long time, we sort of have this idea of how we saw this all develop, But a lot of people, you look at it, WoW might have been their very first MMO. We make fun of it.
The Lich King.
Yeah.
Think about it. Think about everything that came in.
Right.
during Wrath of the Lich King. That was, a lot of people's first MMO experience was that.
Right, so they've grown up in that sort of environment, and we're proposing to them, or at least EverQuest Next is proposing to them, something completely new and unique, and it's going to be hard for them to kind of get their head wrapped around it. So we might be trying to preach to the choir right now. All the people that are sitting in the chat are probably hardcore, either with us or most of them are probably with us because they appreciate what we're trying to say. But there's going to be people out there that just don't get it, and that's okay because they're going to have to get in there to see how it actually works out.
It's a different experience because I heard one person report, this stinks. I don't like this because I just want to get with my friends, get in my group of 5, get in my instance, grind my tiers, get my loot, and call it quits.
Right.
That's what they consider. I know, but that sense of finite progression, that sense of being told this is what success means, and we're telling you how to play the game. Some people find that comforting because it's easy to assess what you need to do in a given night. You jump in, you hit the raid finder, you get in your dungeon. If you're lucky, you get a drop. You cheer, and there's much rejoicing.
And your achievement list in the book.
It's Skinner box. It's Skinner box. There's no risk. There's no consequence. So there's no without risk. There's no real reward. Like all you've done is spent enough time doing the line dance to get whatever it is.
Right.
So it just means you have played. It's like PvP ranks in games and stuff as well. It's more about how much time you have to play than how good you are. So there's no risk. So there's no real reward other than the bright lights and flashing colours on the screen, which is total Skinner box, and you totally miss out on this whole like no guts, no glory thing of like it used to take a real concerted effort of will from like a group of people to really like fight through a series of challenges, and now it's you click on Raid Finder and you go and you do the line dance,
and then you go.
Yep. Exactly. And I think it won't be for everybody. It won't be for everybody. There are people that are going to want that very linear type of gameplay. That being said, the more people that get in a game and the more mass appeal that this game has, and this is why there has to be a balance between hardcore features and really, slightly more casual friendly, lower barrier to entry, so that more players can get in and experience that. But ultimately, those players are going to struggle with this because this is about your story. And if you want to be told what the story is, then you're not going to like this. What I look for is a game that says, here's a rich universe. Think like the Tolkien universe, right? This is the EverQuest universe with all its history and story and lore, and this is one shard of that history, one possible future, one possible, historic book, if you like. There's EQ1, there's EQ2, and there's EQNexus. And they're all individual stories, as we've heard. They're individual lores in many ways, right? So here's one facet of that. Now, you go out into that world, do what you will, make what you will, become what you will. It's entirely up to you. And that's a concept that people are going to take a lot of time to readjust to if they didn't grow up with that concept.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. It has to be a fine balance. There has to be sort of accessible to the WoW generation, but also have the reward that we're looking for our generation of MMO players. And it's gonna be tough.
I think for a successful MMO, especially a sandbox, I agree with David Georgeson, who says you need a lot of types of players. So for an economy-driven sandbox MMO, you need farmers and grinders and people that are going to go out and collect all of those things that then the hardcore upper raid tier, which I'm not part of, by the way.
I'm way.
That's how I want the game to be, because I want those people in my game. I want the top 1% there. I want to see the achievement and think,
wow, that's amazing.
If only I didn't spend all my time PvP and I could be one of those guys.
Or if I was
instead of getting my ass kicked by
sitting in a cave,
rogues and thieves and stuff,
selling toothpicks.
Selling toothpicks.
See,
that's me.
That's the thing. I mean, I've always felt compelled. Like, I'll use World of Warcraft as an example because we're still talking about it. But I always felt compelled that I had to get in and I had to go do these raids, and I really didn't want to because I didn't like the whole people calling you out for not having the right gear, or you screwed up, you didn't step right on the floor when the lava was moving, and all that other stuff that you can kind of screw up with. I didn't like it. I really didn't, but I did it because at the end I got that shiny axe, and I was like, look at this, what I got when I killed that boss. And that was the only reason I did it. And I hated that sort of carrot on a stick thing they used to throw at us and make us play that way. And can't stand it.
But that's the thing, they beat you with the same stick. It's like, all right, if you're not gonna chase the carrot, you know, if you're not gonna chase the carrot on the end of the stick, you know, you log out for a few weeks and come back, you see where you're at.
Do you know?
Especially in PvP, then you have to go grind a load of battlegrounds with people that are just gonna, you know, two-shot you anyway. That's a whole other conversation.
But they did bring. I remember reading about this a long time back when EverQuest or World of Warcraft first came out. That they brought in some game developers from Vegas to help them make the game just like a slot machine, so that you every once in a while you win, but just a tiny little thing, and then you'd hit the big jackpot if you played it enough. And this is the way these games work. At least the WoW type of game, you play it more and more. You play it, the more times you're pulling that stick, and eventually you're going to get the reward by playing it enough. And that's all it is, psychologically.
It's Skinner box mentality. Like, people are actually more likely to continue repeating an action if they're only occasionally rewarded for it.
Yes.
If someone's rewarded with the same reward every time, like, they'll get bored quickly, and if someone's never rewarded, they won't. But it's finding that exact sweet spot, that kind of Goldilocks zone of you know, just enough, and the just occasional purple drop for everyone to, like, lose their minds. And you know, that's what keeps people playing. I'm saying people, I don't like the idea of playing an MMO that people play because they're sort of addicted to that endorphin rush.
Yeah.
Like that slot machine, one arm, bam, that's all it is. That's all it is. There's no risk, there's no skill, there's no consequence to anything. Just keep hitting the loop button, and you know, and then eventually you'll get something back for your trouble. It's never sat right with me, to be honest.
First time I ever did Dire Maul, we went in and a purple item dropped, and the guy grabbed it and auto logged off, or he logged off, right? And so, but I went and farmed that dungeon for 2 months afterwards, trying to get that thing to drop again, and it never did. But you know, that's that whole thing.
There's an interesting concept I want to share, and again, I sometimes get philosophical and totally full of BS, but
go for
it.
That's fine.
You know, you'd never heard that before. So what I like to think of it is like this, and this takes me back a little bit to that concept of, you know, casual players and low barrier to entry. I just wanted to fit this in somewhere, but you know, basically, I do think that because of all these reasons we're talking about right now, there needs to be some kind of a balance, right? So, and I think the devs have talked about this a little tiny bit. There needs to be the ability to be hardcore. To go back to what Locke said, of there needs to be these great players that, you know, whether they're great or not, or whatever, whether they spend a lot of time playing the game or both, we hope it's both, you know, they rise up and accomplish things that we don't think we will ever do. When you are alone at night in the dark and you realize that you're not the best gamer in the world, you know, maybe far from it, or maybe you don't want to be and you accept that. Basically, it's the same concept behind why people have created heroes, why people have created gods, why we today create celebrities. Because we want to look at sports stars and heroes and gods and, you know, great men and say, hey, they've done something that I probably never could have done, even if I do that same thing every day. And while it's very easy to start learning how to play a piano, it's totally not easy to be Rachmaninoff.
Right, yeah.
And so having a game that allows you to easily access it, but still have players who become the great Mozart or the great hero or the great god of the game, looking up to those players and seeing what they are able to achieve, that's something that keeps people excited about earning more equity and earning more position and more power in the game and constantly striving forward. It's the ultimate carrot on the stick, is to be more than you know that you can be.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really cool part of all of this as well.
I agree, and I think, you know, it's, in my opinion, I've thought about this before, and you know, it's no surprise that as MMOs have gone more down the direction that they have, you know, we've seen games like League of Legends rise to be the most popular games, and you know, the ones that are pulling in the big audiences and all the money, and it's like this huge esports scene because people want to watch those top 1% players. You know, a lot of people who play League of Legends, I'm sure, must be spending as much time watching other people playing the game as they do playing the game themselves.
I used to watch Day 9.
Fantastic, isn't
StarCraft.
that brilliant?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
It's just like football or whatever it is that you lot play, or you know.
We call it football, but it's a different game. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. But it's like that, isn't it? You know, you can go down the park and play yourselves with your buddies, or you can watch like the best of the best go up against it, and that's why it's a huge. I mean, how much is just sport worth worldwide as an industry? And
Right.
that's kind of, I think, what games like League of Legends have tapped into by having those top players be such a visible part of the community.
Absolutely. All right. Next topic.
Oh, we're doing another topic.
Yeah. Pay to play, free to play, and pay to win issues.
Pro. Top 1%.
Go for it.
Business model.
Business model.
Business.
You want to tackle it first this time, Locke?
It's show business. You ain't got no business to show. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I don't either.
Let's have us talk for a while.
I can talk.
Yeah,
Certainly.
All right. Issues with pay to play, free to play, and pay to win. What do you got?
Wow. I mean, there's so many options here. It will be free to play, so that's just part of the deal, right? What the question is, where the really interesting question is where will it be pay to play? Where will that enter the arena? Where will that become important? We know Player Studio factors into their ability to make money quite significantly, I would imagine. That's going to be something that's really huge. It also touches on a really huge point, which is the ability to sell plots of land in a procedurally generated world above and below ground.
Right.
So, I mean, that's huge, right?
That's like owning the earth and being able to make it bigger every time you wanted to because the land ran out,
Right.
and make money on it every time you do.
Yeah, and I mean, there's plots of land that you're going to have besides very rich mineral deposits, we assume, or those may be randomly generated, and it might not matter. We don't know. The proverbial diamonds in Minecraft, it could just be random. We don't know, but it seems to make sense to me based on what I've heard from the devs that there will be mithril in the mines in the mountains as opposed to in the swamplands, right?
Yeah.
So I think it'll be regionally sensible. So that all creates this question of the value of your player equity. Your player equity now has value in terms of the plot of land or in terms of the templates that you can build. So those things are going to be a really important part of their ability to make money. I would have to imagine at some point there'll be some type of thing that we can buy. For example, it wouldn't surprise me if a player shop allowed you to buy additional plots of land, the ability to place additional claims.
You're saying like a grocery store or something, like you would set it up like that? What do you mean?
No, I mean you go into the SOE cash shop and you buy additional claim flags.
I see. Oh, okay, yeah. That makes sense.
I think I seem to remember hearing one of the devs saying something along those lines. When you first go into the world, you've got your first flag. You have a flag that you can plonk down, and then that's your area. And I think then everything after that is going to be cash.
So I think there's going to be stuff like that, convenience items, that are going to contribute to the business model. But I mean, I don't think it's ever going to be pay to win per se. It just doesn't make sense in the model. There's a question of bots. There's a question of buying these things, making them valuable, and reselling them, and how that could be an RMT, rogue money trade system. There's lots of things like that, but I don't think we're going to see I'd be surprised if we see a huge box price. I think we might in EverQuest Next see a box price, buy once, play free. I think that makes sense to me. And I hope they do that because it gives a lot of opportunity for collector's editions for diehard fans.
Yeah, they're going to have to because I want my
really
little Verona vase statue and stuff.
Yeah. So I'd be all for that. I'd like to see, the different types of purchasable retail boxes. $60 a pop, whatever it happens to be, 120, whatever they get up to. Plus then some microtransactions available, as well as the Player Studio where they take a cut, and then kind of free to play after that. That's what I expect to see is that hybrid combination.
Okay. What do you think, Mr. Locke?
Well, Mr. Domo, I'm glad you asked. I don't know why people. I've had a few conversations like this where people do seem to think there'll be like a hybrid model or a buy to play, but I've heard so many times from devs. David Georgeson said in the Athene interview after PAX, he said it will be free to play.
Yeah.
Omid on Reddit said it will be free to play. Terry Michaels, John Smedley at SOE Live said it will be free to play. If you go to EverQuestNext.com, at the bottom of the homepage it says free to play. I think if then they turn around and go, oh no, we mean free to play, like there's no subscription, I can't imagine their PR department is that bad that that they think they'll be able to weather that storm. But
so you don't think they'll have like a digital collector's edition or anything like that?
I think they'll absolutely have like early adopters packs and digital collector's edition type bundles that you'll be able to buy before launch. Probably after launch as well. They'll have special items, intended to give you, maybe a special thing to put like on the front of your first mud hut, Minecraft style that you make. Maybe little special things like that, or some kind of boosts or something to give you, to give you a bit of a leg up just to get over that first kind of hurdle. I absolutely expect to see that kind of thing, but I would be absolutely flabbergasted if you couldn't play the game without paying any money. I would be really, really surprised.
I think it's worth just pointing out that I think Locke's on the right track here, by the way. I expect there to be a collector's edition. I expect there to be a box set. I expect there to be a retail copy in a store. I expect there to be all of those things. I expect there to be a microtransaction store. I expect there to be player studio. As I've said, I expect all those things to be there. But I do expect the game to be playable for free.
Yeah. I think sometimes, though, even items in the store that would seem pretty reasonable, like an XP boost, can still give other players the feeling like they're getting ripped off. And here's why. If I'm a player and I have no life, and I can play every single day for 14 hours, and then my friend here can't. He works a real job, and he has a family and everything, and he can only work 2 hours a day. So they put the XP boost in the store so that because I don't have a life and I don't have a job, I can't afford to buy, but he can, so that's supposed to level out the playing field so that he can still level up with me at the same time and everything. I know there's probably not going to be levels in this game, tiers and all that, but you know what I'm saying. But what if there's the third type of person who has 14 hours a day and is somebody, a rich kid, and he can now buy the experience boost. So now he is flying past everybody else. And so I think that's where a lot of people get nervous. They're like, they don't care about person 1 so much, they don't care about person 2, but person 3 that has the time and the resources can somehow win the game before everybody else can, or get to content before everybody else can. Don't know if it's much of a problem in a sandbox game, but what are your thoughts?
I think if someone has 14 hours a day to play a game and doesn't have to worry about money, I'm not worried about the game not being fair. I'm more worried about life not being fair.
Right. I think that's where this all comes from. That's where the people are upset about.
I'm not bothered about it. That's fine. I'll just be like, who did your great-great-grandparents have to murder for you to have this life?
Yeah.
I think, oh god, there's a really similar, even though it is buy to play, there's a really similar system in Guild Wars 2, and they really do promote it. And I think it's one of those things that, you can buy gold with real money in that game, and that's a huge part of their of their business model. And honestly, like because of the nature of the game, because there's no real gear treadmill that's based on gold, it really doesn't seem to make a huge difference. You can get those experience boosts, and it's like 50% extra XP off mob kills, but it's barely noticeable. Because of level scaling, or they've said in EQNexus they want you to be able to do everything right from the start anyway. How fast your level is, and it's not really an issue. And I think that it's not going to be fair.
Life isn't fair, right? Yeah.
I don't think it's up. I don't think it's Sony's job to make sure that everyone's life is satisfactory to the point where they don't have to worry about someone being able to level 25% faster than them in a computer game. That in 6 months' time, I remember. Oh my god! I just had a flashback to Reddit before Guild Wars 2 came out.
Right.
People were talking about how because you could buy experience boosts in the cash shop,
Mm-hmm.
that was pay to win, because that would mean that people on certain servers could all buy those boosters, and then they'd all get to level 80 before before anyone on the other server, and then they'd all have an advantage. And people called that pay to win, and it's like, okay, so that's week one, and
Right.
after week one, when everyone can actually log in reliably and,
Right.
and play the game, and some of the bugs start getting ironed out, it'll be fine. And I think in online games, I think we're not at the point where we can expect them to be perfectly functioning and balanced in any meaningful way within the first 6 months after release. And especially with a game like EverQuest Next, I imagine mistakes will be made, things won't be fair. People will find exploits, people will be banned for things and get very incensed on forums about it.
Yep.
And that's just what happens. I mean, it's people, and we choose to spend our time in these fantasy worlds, but ultimately I'm sat here in a chair in my living room. You can't really get away from that, and I don't think that's really Sony's responsibility to to fix our lives.
But it is their responsibility. They need to fix my life right now. I think that there's a couple of things I like to throw out when I have this discussion, because it comes up in a lot of games these days. And the first one is, what is free to play? What does that mean? Right? Let's define free to play.
Okay.
Free to play means that instead of typically being, as Locke said earlier, instead of being forced to buy a boxed version, now we've clarified this, instead of being forced to buy one, you have that choice oftentimes, but you essentially can take that amount of dollars that you would have spent on a boxed version and translate it into payments over time to things in the game that are made available to you to purchase that you think will be useful for how you want to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's the intent behind free to play. Now the thing is, some people can spend the equivalent of buying 10 copies of the game. So you've got to put in some checks and balances to make sure they don't unbalance the game. But this brings you to point number 2. And by the way, point number 1, what is free to play? It does not necessarily mean that the entire game, all content, all conveniences, all options are constantly turned on and you can play completely for free.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a second, because that's that part.
So,
go ahead.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
What is pay to win then? Well, it means you're paying to win something,
Mm-hmm.
right? Shock, right? Mind's blown. Which, if you follow the logic...
Whoa.
It doesn't mean that. If you follow the
Slow down here, pal.
So if you follow the logic, you have to ask the question in each new game, what am I winning?
Mm-hmm.
So if I have infinite resources with which to pay, what is it that I win? And in a game where you are telling your story, independent of other players, the only thing that you really have to win is how quickly or effectively you tell the story you want to tell, which isn't really winning much.
Right.
The only place where paying to win would really be applicable in a negative sense is if you can pay for things that give you an advantage over contested content. Then you have a pay to win system.
That's what I think that most of the people were concerned about, that I read about this on Reddit and things.
Yeah, so as long as you don't go down that path, as long as I can't go and buy a 400 million% mount that gets me to this mob faster.
It's faster than light.
As long as I can't buy super duper fast arrows that hit the mob faster and tag it and it's mine, as long as there aren't systems.
Compass that
An
shows
enchanted
what
compass.
direction the raid bus
Exactly.
is in.
Exactly. As long as somebody else doesn't have a mithril brick finder, it's going to be okay. It's really just about how quickly you can get to where you want to go in your story at that point. It's convenience. So you got to always ask, what is it exactly that I'm trying to win?
I think that what I want to touch back on the other thing you were talking about, how will it unlock certain aspects. We have SWTOR as the example, which recently went to free to play, supposedly, and it's completely crippled. Like, you can't do anything. You can't talk to people. You can't open up the auction house. You can't mail things to people. All these things that are just like, Yeah, I get it. So that's something the part people are mostly worried about. They don't want to get into a game where they're so crippled that they're just forced to pay a subscription or forced to pay for some sort of expansion or whatever that makes them go to this cash shop and then unlock a certain thing and pay $20 for this, because they have shown that you will spend more money on microtransactions every month than you will on a subscription. So when the devs start doing that sneaky stuff, it really irks a lot of people, and I could see that killing a game like this pretty quickly.
But I think the problem with the Star Wars free to play model is it was never designed to be a free to play model. You know, it has been described by others as the arrogance of the development team that thought they could just come in and steamroll everything and they'd be absolutely fine. Meant that no checks and measures were put in place for it to ever come about. I think if you look at the Secret World, that when they dropped their subscription, I think if you look at that game, you can kind of see how it was always planned to go down that route.
Yeah.
So that's it's been a little bit kinder to that game. But I think if you look at a game like PlanetSide 2 from Sony Online, I think they have a fantastic system.
It's fun.
Of free to play. I think it's a fun game. I'm not a first person shooter type of guy, but I tried it out.
Yeah, me too.
I put 20 hours into that game.
I put $20 into that game.
I haven't spent a single penny on that game.
Yeah, I wanted to buy this.
I've had 20 hours of enjoyment out of that game.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I might chuck something at it. Who knows, to see what else is available to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine, because I've gone in and I've enjoyed it as a casual thing. I've been content for other people who have sniped me from a mile away.
Right, and they got an extra couple points. Yeah.
Which has kept those other players engaged, because that's what they're there for. That's what they want to be doing. So everyone's a winner, aren't they? And I think that's great. So yeah, PlanetSide 2, because it was built to be free to play, and a game like League of Legends built to be free to play.
Right. Yeah, they're not trying to pull them in here.
They've made an absolute truckload of money off that. So I think they've learned now, haven't they? It's been long enough. Free to play has been bashed for long enough. The developers, they're gamers as well. They know what's all right and what isn't.
Yeah.
I think they'd be, absolutely stupid to put anything in that was game breaking. We will, though, I predict, because I can see into the future. I don't know if any of you know this, but on Reddit,
I saw that
about a month before launch, as they start revealing cash shop items, there will be a Sky is Falling post where about 1,000 people will boycott the game because of some item that's in the cash shop that lets you move 10% faster for 20 minutes or something like that.
Absolutely.
Pay to win. It's pay to win.
We hate you, Sony.
Pay to win.
All right, so we're gonna hit into our Q&A time. So everybody, please start writing in your questions. Put it in brackets so that the mods can see it. While we're waiting for the questions to start coming in, we will. I want to mention that we are sponsored by EQNexus, which is an amazing website community that they have. Awesome conversations over there. You can jump in anytime and start chatting away over there. And all of us, Locke, myself, and Zaphos, we're all over there chatting it with everybody too. So come on over to EQNexus and make sure that you join in the conversation. All right.
It's great. It's really growing into such a good community at the moment. I'm so pleased with the way that it's been panning out so far.
Yeah.
That's just what I think. Yeah. Good place to hang out. Are we doing questions?
Yep.
Sick. Right. Legendary Neurotoxin is back again, saying, how big is this world gonna need to be so there's not overcrowding for terrain? Giant empty expanses like Star Wars Galaxies, even bigger? I do have an answer for this. I have a quote from Terry Michaels.
Okay.
It was just he did say that theoretically the world, especially in I think specifically in EverQuest Next Landmark, the world could theoretically be infinite, especially with the way that you can move between servers and everything. They said there's no real reason why they can't do that, but it's just a question of whether they'd want to do that or not. So yeah, the tech is there for it to be completely open. I think because of the way that terrain generation works and the way that I read somewhere after this PAX, they said that there'll be certain items that you have infinite of, so you'll always have as much dirt as you want and as much rocks as you want.
I had a question about that.
Yeah, you'll be able to put like trees everywhere and stuff. So as far as terraforming an area goes, like you'll be able to go absolutely crazy. but it's just actual like building materials.
Bricks.
I think will be in short supply, which is great because that means they just voxel farm, and it's almost it doesn't matter what the terrain is. Like you just need a space to put your flag down, and then within a couple of hours you can make the area look however you want it to look.
I wonder how big it's going to be. Is it like an acre, 2 acres, 3 acres? How much you can actually build in that specific spot.
Yeah, I don't think they've had a specific answer. I think they've said it's going to be big to the point where if you're by yourself, you'll struggle to fill it. That seems to be the general consensus.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to say that's definitely the answer, but
I think there's a couple of good points raised there, in terms of the size of the game world, right? I think it is infinite, for all intents and purposes, depending on a couple of things on the server side and the client side, but ultimately it is pretty much infinite. The question is, as Locke pointed out, as Terry Michael said, it's really more about would you want to make it as infinite as possible. What happens in like a cube world or a Minecraft is the world essentially goes on forever. Eventually your RAM will break down, but ultimately it goes on forever. And the question is, do you want to do that? Because how do you want to handle your community? How dispersed or close-knit do you want your community to be? There are players like me who want to go off into the wilderness sometimes on usually an alt character and explore and never ever see humanity ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Usually if people don't buy enough bricks. But, I do that and I like to go out and explore. I did it in Darkfall. I got a mount, I get a cloak, I get a couple of basic weapons, biggest backpack possible, whatever it happens to be, and I go off and I never come back. And I see what all sorts of things I can discover and find and loot, and if I can get back alive, and I usually never do.
Right.
I remember once I had this, great, journey I'd been on, and they have these chaos boxes. You open them up, and they're randomly spawned around the world. But I'm going to places in the tops of peaks of mountains that nobody ever goes to, and I'm finding these things with amazing things in them, and they can have massively, massively expensive and rare items in them, or just cheap garbage. And I remember I had a whole bunch of these. I'd filled up everything. I was ready to head back. And I'm riding this, mount across these dwarven lands, which hate me because I'm an orc or something like that. And they just hate you anyway because they're going to kill you, right? So open PvP. So I'm getting chased down by these guys, 3 of them trying to pin me down and corner me. Another couple of guys come along with bows. And ultimately, I end up dying in a field and losing everything.
Oh.
But it was a great journey, right? So anyway, why the hell do I tell these stories? I don't even remember the question anymore.
I don't know, but it's a good story. Go ahead.
It's like it was an amazing journey, and then I died.
I lost it all. I'll start again,
That's a lesson for life, kids. Come here.
So I think you've got to be able to give players that kind of exploratory option in a game like this. But at the same time, you want them to be able to gather around the crafting table, sell their wares, exchange stories, exchange items, do whatever, be part of the community. So you want to have both. So I think Terry Michael's point is more addressing, hey, we want it to be a really large world, and it can be, but we want there to be some limitations so that players don't just get lost forever, and that rallying calls go ignored, and things that require grouping never get done. They want that type of stuff to be able to take place. So I think it's a question of how you want to handle the community and the interaction between players as opposed to what's technically possible. I expect it to be big.
Same here. All right, let's move on. We got like 500 questions we got here.
Yeah, we got so many. Oh god, this one's huge as well. Cyril, I'm really sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Hey, how you doing? Says, what do you think about racial stats / abilities versus all races being equal? Big question. Racial abilities, racial stat meaningful racial stat differentials.
Well,
what do we reckon?
Right off the bat, I want dark elves to see at night and humans to be blind. Right?
Nostalgia.
Yeah.
By Geekdomo, the new fragrance.
It's great. It's musky. It's very musky smelling.
That was a Watchmen reference for anyone in chat.
But anyway, but I'm all for that nostalgia. I think as far as just the basic racials, dark elves should be able to see at night, trolls should be able to see at night, and that kind of thing. As far as stats, I mean, have they even really talked about stats all that much? It almost seems to me like they're just sort of skirting that whole issue. Like, will there be stats in this game? I mean, they probably will, but is it WoW style stats where, it's based off of D&D, con, dex, strength, all that? What do you think?
I think they did mention at SOE that stats are there, but they're not the central core of building a character. I think it's, there always has to be numbers behind what's happening, obviously, and I think it'll probably be more of a guide as to how a certain class is meant to be used, as it is in Warcraft, because there's very specific. If you are this class and this spec, this is your gear. So really, it's just a guide anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any real difference. They might as well not be there really. So I like racial abilities. I think the danger is when you get that racial ability that is great with this certain class.
Then you're
ability
stuck.
Or weapon skill.
Yeah.
And then it's. If
everybody
you're
has to
not
play
that
it.
race, then no one wants you to play that class.
I can't stand that.
Yeah, I think that's awful, and it's difficult as well, because with so many classes and combinations possible already, if they put the wrong thing in the wrong place, then that's GG.
Mm-hmm.
See you later. So it's tough. It's difficult. They've said they want choices to matter, but MMO players are min maxers. A lot of MMO players are min maxers, and you do get that kind of elitism. So
theory crafting.
I hope that it's I hope this is the thing. I hope that it's stuff that benefits like groups. You know what I mean? So if you're in a group and you have that particular race, then there is some kind of benefit to having a race in a group.
5% run speed, something like that.
Yeah, just small things, but things that whatever race you're taking, or night vision and everything. So you can have someone leading you down the path, or whatever it might be, but things that are beneficial to groups, I think would be alright. But things like, if it's like a 5% damage boost when behind someone and using daggers, I think that's going to be...
Right, then you have to be a rogue.
That's the type of thing that's game-breaking.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just not fun, that kind of thing. But, sort of, I hesitate to use the term fluff abilities, but you know what I mean by that, don't you? Like flavor abilities.
Maybe somebody put in chat, +5 to nature resist.
Yeah.
Yay. Like, what does that do for me? So those... what do you think, Zaphos?
It's a pretty big question. I'll just answer it very shortly, though. I think that...
I want a story.
I think that I don't like equality. I like inequality. So that I can be on the top. So, that's what it really boils down to for me, is, all things being equal, all things will be boring. That's kind of my saying. So I don't like equality. I like there to be some difference. I don't want to be a Ratonga or I suppose you can't really play a Gnoll, but or a gnome, and feel that I'm every bit as capable as being a defensive type character or a warrior as an ogre or a troll. From a lore point of view, I like there to be some little things like that. Now, what I will balance that with is the following: if you are willing to put in the effort to be a gnome warrior, you should have the ability to be every bit as good in the end as a troll, but it might be a harder path.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good take. I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
We've got to move on because time keeps dragging on.
Let's go.
My man, Legendary Neurotoxin, thanks for coming. Has it actually been confirmed that players can have positive interactions with enemy/AI races, or is the most we can do to help orcs something like staying out of the way and not saving their victims? I think this is about doing things. It's back to the idea of getting in the way of players doing rallying calls, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's
the question.
Yeah, I think that's what they're talking about. Is if, say, you want to be a griefer and you want to charge in and block the people from taking the bricks back to the guy, then can you kill the guy, the players carrying them, or can you help the orcs kill those people, or whatever? Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. Is like, because I know there are players that's to them a good game, and I can understand that. I don't appreciate that, but to them they like that kind of thing.
I think, Zaphos, what do you reckon? Freedom?
The devs don't want to create a game that's based on the potential for griefing, so griefing itself will be kept to a minimum. I think that there will be an ability to have negative consequences, but I think most of those things will be indirect as opposed to direct. In other words, I think you'll more accidentally and on the outskirts help stop something like that, as opposed to, say, by not participating, as opposed to saying, hey, I am now an orc warlord, initiated into the tribe, and I live in Crashbone. I don't think that's going to happen.
That would be epic, though, would it not?
It would.
That would be really cool,
cool
if you could do
it
that.
Would be cool.
Work your way up to the
I think,
tier.
yeah. I think it's a little early to say, but I think ultimately, it will be possible to be evil, but, maybe in a way that we haven't seen yet or they haven't told us about.
That would be
yes.
cool. Yeah.
Time keeps dragging on. Let's do it. This name I have absolutely no chance with.
John VDC?
The first, there's so many consonants. The first part is John. So, hey, John.
It's John VDC. His last name is like Van something. It's really hard, bad, and he gave...
Oh, yeah, right. No, hey,
yeah.
man, how you doing? Sorry,
and he told me, don't even try to attempt to say my last name. Just call me John VDC, so...
Yeah, the pressure of reading. If factions are influenced by your guild, won't that just mean more drama when people destroy your faction just to annoy somebody else?
Yeah.
I guess we're going back to griefing again, aren't we?
Yeah, we're still...
What is the matter? All you people in chat, what is the matter? You all just want to
Well, no. What I think they don't want the griefers. I think, as they're saying.
I know.
Yeah.
What do we think, Zaphos? You were talking about guild faction before. What do you think about this? What do you think about guild drama caused by people altering faction in ways that other people won't like?
Yeah, it just depends if they extend the tendrils of influence to that level of detail or not, or whether they put up Chinese walls, so to speak, between different guilds and players' abilities to have alternating or opposing faction relationships, right? So it's like I said, if you go out and kill a whole bunch of orcs, does that mean that a holy paladin of good is going to smite thee every time he sees you? No, I don't think so. I think it'll be deeds done in secret to an extent. I don't think it'll have too much of an effect. It could be a good political system. You've just got to watch that you don't run the risk of creating a political game, and that's not what we want.
Domo, any thoughts?
Actually, I was just looking for something for the next question.
Do you want me to hold off on that one?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. We'll go on Midian. Who the hell is Midian?
Nobody knows.
No, you can ask the next question. I didn't get it in time. I was gonna do something cute, but it didn't work.
Oh, okay, then we'll go to Seamus Jones' question.
Yep.
Hey buddy, how you doing? If I play a halfling and murder another halfling for a ring, can I move to a cave and sustain myself on just a diet of fish? I imagine he means raw fish.
Yes, raw fish.
Raw fish. Oh.
Precious.
What do we think? You know what? I'm going to say yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think they need to put that in the game completely. Because I plan on living in a cave. I'm going to be Captain Stinky, passing out toothpicks. So I have no problem with a guy named Smeagol living next door, hanging out with me, eating fish.
Honestly, this is a game-breaking issue. I will be boycotting the game if this is not possible. It'll be the first thing that I try to do.
Gollum.
Yeah, drown him in a river.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Right. So Midian, whoever the hell that is.
Yeah.
Actually, just before. Actually, no. I have to stop. I know we're time sensitive right now, but I actually think it should be possible. Like, really, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, you should really be able to completely mess up your faction standings. You should actually become so evil that you really just give up. And if you can't afford to buy another character slot in the cash shop, you have to go live in the mountain. So I think that I've played games like that, where I've become so evil, like in Ultima Online, where you had a PK system that eventually you turned red, and you literally couldn't do anything. You had to live out of society. You had to find a way to get resources. You had to find a way to survive. It was all part of the penalty of being evil. So yeah, I actually think there should be a system that allows you to, or forces you to, sacrifice in order to live with your consequences.
Absolutely.
It creates hugely compelling gameplay for the people doing it, and then it creates content and opportunity for people who choose not to do that as well, because obviously they're on the other side, so it benefits everyone to be able to do that. So we made a serious answer to your joke question, trying to make a mockery of this podcast. How dare you?
Because we're so pro.
Yeah, because we're so pro. Question numero 6 or something. What are your thoughts about a game that has 40 classes at launch can be switched frequently? Do you feel this impacts character identity within the world?
I think so. I'll take a stab at that. It is. Yeah, it's one of those things that you can't have serve two masters kind of deal, right? And I think if you have 40 different options for you to pick from, what are you really good at it? Now, they did say that you could play a particular class and stay with it all the way to the end. You don't have to play those other 40 classes. So maybe of the 40, you pick 3 that you really focus well on, and that's something you could become really epically known for those 3 particular classes. But yeah, I think it impacts your identity. I think it does, because you might be known as the mage, and then now all of a sudden you show up the next day and you're a Shadow Knight. How did that happen? So yeah.
I think as long as I think with 40 classes, homogenization would be inevitable if it was in a system that didn't rely on roles and heavily rely on roles. Obviously, we're not looking at classic Trinity, but from what SOE have said, there is that role system in there, and I hope that classes are dependent on each other in a rock paper scissors kind of way. And I think as far as character identity, if the roles are strong, then it's about what role you fill rather than what character you play.
I agree.
I think that's fantastic. I think that's it creates even greater identity, because you'll have
all right, you converted me.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. In that circumstance, if it all goes down how they say it's going to go down, it'll be fantastic. But if it is, as a lot of people, worst case scenario, have said, if it does turn into just DPS Zerg Rush, where there's no reason to not just go 100% damage and just max out your damage, then to me that'll be a total failure of design. In my opinion, because then why even have different classes?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's based on roles, Zaphos, I'm sorry, carry on.
Oh, it's no, fine, it's fine. I look at it a slightly different way. I see the role of classes in a sandbox game is to create tools. And what you want to do with those tools is accomplish the goals that you have set as part of your own story. So when you go out into the world and you discover the ability to learn a new set of skills, aka you learn a new class, really all you're doing is saying that, hey, I, Zaphos, now know how to wield a sword in a slightly different way. It's not the same as saying, hey, I'm now a Shadow Knight, in my opinion, or I'm now a Cleric, or I'm now a Paladin. It's just saying, hey, I've learned how to combine different skills from different masters and to do different things with them as the situation calls. And the more of these that I have access to, the greater number of problems I can solve. So I think you'll be known as Zaphos, as Midian, as Domo, as Locke. You'll be known as you, and the tools that you bring to the group will become more valuable or less valuable depending on how well you use them. That's how I view it.
We're going to have to speed up the questions a bit here.
Well.
No, I'm just saying we're running out of time.
If that's how it is.
I'm sorry.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll just real quick answers from the rest of these, so if we can get through them, because we're at an hour and a half already.
Bartel Delight, how do you guys feel about particle weapons versus non-shiny particle weapons? I.e., should only the special armor weapons have effects?
Oh, like every pair of shoulders or weapons glow in World of Warcraft?
Got big old shoulders,
yeah.
fancy glowy weapons for everyone. On the way into Orgrimmar.
Yes. I think the first...
They pop out of the fountain in Stormwind.
It started out sort of simple, though. I mean, what was it? Beastmaster? What was it? Beastmaster was the very first one you could get in World of Warcraft when it first started, and it was hard to get all the materials and everything for it, and it was kind of cool to have a glowing red sword, and then now if you don't have some glowy effect, it's just ridiculous. I don't know.
Yeah, I think some game designers, they end up in a state of inflation, or it becomes like a sort of arms race situation where you have this one fancy item, but then the next fancy item has to be just that little bit fancier. And sooner or later you end up where there's so many of them anyway, you might as well just make a load. I think with the art style that they've gone for in EverQuest Next, I think it would be odd if we didn't see certain things with particle effects. I would like to see gear that is crafted, and if it has certain types of magical enchantments on it, those enchantments are what make the particle effect happen on the armor rather than it just being, this is what this particular thing looks like. I think, it's good for customization, it's good for PvP, like knowing, what that person's all about. I think it's good, talking about character identity, you can it's a way of visually saying, like, this is what I'm about. So, that's my take, my quick answer.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I'd like to see particle effects be an effect. I'd like to see those particle effects be indicative of particular skills, abilities, enchantments, crafting items, just like Locke said. So if I see somebody running at me with a sword that has, big shiny pig's tail coming off it or something, I know this guy is a lethal pig slayer with pig slaying enchantments, right? So I got to be careful if I'm a pig, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing I mean.
Or maybe if you're a capitalist pig.
Brick.
Straight out the subconscious from Zaphos.
Very nice.
Anyway, enough silliness. Next question. Vin Gaming says, what do you think this Etherneer time thing is going to be all about? Obviously, talking about, they've said EverQuest 1, EverQuest 2, and EverQuest Next aren't really the same universe. They're like alternate dimensions of the same thing, and through this Etherneer, this hypothetical, perhaps afterlife, some sort of spirit dimension, is where the three games are linked. So, tie-ins, what do we think? Domo, I know that you're into this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think...
I don't know that.
No, you don't, yeah. I'm really all about string theory and particle physics, and the planes coming close together and touching. Anyway, so, I don't know, I think that... I think that they can pull together the different lores to try to make them match up, but yeah, this is a total reboot. The Etherneer thing is supposed to be that where when you die, you go to a place where everybody is from all three games. Was I reading that right, or?
I guess the idea is that all the sort of characters and individuals kind of have the same soul, but are individuals split across different dimensions.
I see.
That's as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
I think it's just a gimmicky way of sort of tying it together without actually being bound by anything. I mean, I'm sure they'll come up with interesting.
That's where Interruck is, by the way.
To do with the story.
Interruck, he's hanging out up there in the ether. Yeah, he's not allowed to come to this realm.
Yeah. For me, it's a piece of lore that is really a system. In other words, it's a mechanic that allows the team to create anything from rallying calls to player-driven AI to special events that revolve around crossovers between all three games. That's really what it boils down to for me.
Okay.
It's a cool little thing. I mean, they could have left them completely separate, but they've come up with a fun idea to link it together. So why not? It's fun, isn't it? Underline, full stop. Seamus James, hey buddy, will you guys make a big fat guy tune just to see him do parkour?
Yes.
I will now. Yeah.
An ogre for sure.
I'm going. I'm dwarf all the way anyway, so it'll be hilarious. Yeah, dwarf with a big hammer and plate mail, bouncing around.
I don't know if you
bouncing around like a gummy bear. Did you guys have gummy bears in America?
Oh yeah, we have gummy bears.
Bouncing here and there and everywhere.
Ich bin ein Gummibär. Ich bin ein Gummibär. Do you remember when the dwarves, when EverQuest first came out, before they even started in patches, the dwarves used to do these front roll, and you could actually run faster by doing flips forward than you could by running in any other race. So
a naturally agile race, people forget, is that muscle density, power to weight ratio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they took that out eventually, but it was good for a short time.
Yeah. Just
flipping dwarves everywhere.
Zaphos, any thoughts?
Maybe we can roll this into the next question, which basically says, what are your feelings of the new parkour videos?
All right, we'll play that some more. We'll play that while we're talking.
So why the hell are they all doing those flips? Oh god, this is going to be difficult because I could talk about. I'm actually doing a video on this later this week. So basically, what it boils down to for me is it's about movement, and it's about being able to cross space in a certain amount of time, and look cool and feel cool and be very action oriented. As the game and combat system will also be very highly action oriented. The concept of doing this with 5 or 6 people is going to be comical. It's going to be really interesting, but I think it'll become pretty much the norm. So basically, it's cool. I like it. I think it's going to be really fun. My big question is, we're seeing it now in an empty universe. What's the impact if you have spawns of creatures all around the world? then how does it play in more? I think that's where we're going to see it be more interesting.
I just had this vision of these people, like you see these people leaping over mountains and stuff, and it's just like this random, like the Blues Brothers when they're in the church, and these people just flipping through the air left and right. I don't know.
Yeah. For me, if I was to develop
a 40-man raid.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be fun. For me, it's a way for the developers to say, hey, if people die and go somewhere, how do they come back? If they don't have a mount, how do they get where they're going? How do we do this without breaking travel? How do we create a system that's easy to access and fun? How do we make people happy? How do we make it look cool? Oh, let's do parkour.
Yeah. I
think reading between the lines, what I've heard a few of them say, it does kind of give me hope for the game, really, because they've said, they want people to explore and travel out into the world, and because of that, they want it to make just moving around the world to be an engaging and fun activity. And I think, because of that sort of design philosophy and premise, that kind of gives me quite a lot of hope that we will actually have to travel places rather than just pinging around the world. If they've said we want travel to be engaging and fun, then fingers crossed that means it's going to be a big enough world to make travel a necessary part of the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Should we move on?
Move on.
Go. Got a quick fire.
Sorry.
What kind of crafting social classes would you like to see in EverQuest Next? Oh god, it's another hour conversation.
We could talk about this for maybe we should just next.
We could do a whole show.
We could do a whole show on crafting because I love crafting.
Oh man, social classes. I love the idea of social classes. Where did they go? Especially when you can switch so easily. Like what was it they had in SWG? They had dancers and musicians. What if you could get different musicians together and learn different instruments and craft different instruments and getting a band to play with people, all the bards and everything. Fantastic, just things to be able to do with other people. Mechanics existing within a game that allow you to do certain things and probably hopefully benefit other people in some way.
You could be a starving artist.
Think about just filling out the world with these people, and think about role players. Role players get a lot of stick from a lot of people, but I think they're brilliant. Like when you're walking through town and you see these people like having a conversation in the speech bubbles, and it does make you kind of stop and do that double take of, is this something new that I'm
right.
I always stop and watch it, and I think it's a fantastic thing to do in the world. And if you give people all the tools to be able to flesh out a world, and when you walk into a town there's all different people doing different things, I think as far as what I'd like to see everything. I'd like to see jugglers and fire breathers and street artists and and musicians and dancers, and I don't know what, that's all just the arty kind of style. I'd also like to see
merchants,
lawyers and merchants and lions and tigers and bears, oh my, and just every type of sort of social non-adventuring type job I would love to see. I don't think that will ever happen in a game like this, but I would like there to be a lot of scope for that to be in the game.
Oh, there we go. All right.
I got quite passionate about the answers to that. The answer.
Well, we could talk about it for an hour.
We could, yeah. I think I was trying to answer quickly, but it just ended up.
We should actually. Somebody should take a note of that and say, let's do that question next week. Actually, it's probably one of our topics, maybe, because I don't think we'll have a lot of new information by next week.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool to talk about.
It would be good.
Should we save that one for next week then?
The crafting, yeah. Well, I definitely want to talk about crafting social class.
All right then, guys. I want your 10,000 word dissertations on my desk by Wednesday. That's all right. First draft. Question: do you think the EQ devs are going to handhold with UI, or do you think they will throw back to the first EverQuest?
I think so.
What do we think UI is going to be?
How far back in the first EverQuest? Like when it was just a square in the middle of the screen with buttons all around
Many
it?
moons ago.
Or when you could actually move it?
I think they're talking about Velius, probably Velius UI.
Yeah.
I think for me, I can answer it very simply. I think that the UI will be ultra slick.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be ultra minimalist, and it'll involve 99% muscle memory after your first 3 hours of playing the game. After that, you won't see a UI pretty much.
You won't even have to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, besides your inventory and crafting and things like that, when you're actually in the game in combat, you won't even recognize there's a UI there for the most part, if they do it right. It'll be super minimalist, very small number of actions that you can take. I can't remember the exact number now, but we'll see what it is. It's 6 or something. 8, but you'll have a limited number of actions you can take, and that's it. That's all it will be. It will be extremely minimalist, and that's a really good evolution. I would absolutely hate to think that any modern MMO coming out in the next 5 years would dare to create a UI a la EverQuest 1, World of Warcraft, or any other MMO that's been built recently. They are so out of date. It's not even funny.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I hope that it's minimal. I hope it's not intrusive. I don't want to look at a UI in a game. I don't want to have to be looking at cooldowns or watching my minimap when I'm traveling around. I want to be looking at the screen, what's actually happening, and taking in the beautiful scenery with the amazing lighting. And I want to, chop down trees for no reason and dig a hole because I'm a dwarf, god damn it, and that's what we do.
I was just playing Final Fantasy the other day, and I was remarking about that with my wife. I was saying, look, I'm looking at the little mini map the entire time. I'm like, okay, I got to go to I'm missing everything, like not watching the world at all. So yeah, I would love a minimalized UI. And if you need a map, you hit M to open the map, which is okay, but not have it up in the corner all the time where you have to follow it. Just my opinion.
Last question.
Yep, last question.
Last question from Blue Plane, you alright mate, is what would you like to see as guild features?
Guild house. Guild house. Definitely gotta have a
guild house.
Mm-hmm.
Whose house?
You can't jump between guild. Actually, I like WoW for this one thing. They instituted the whole leveling up system for the guild, and it made people not want to jump between guilds. Because you can, this always happens, and maybe I'm just have a pipe dream here, but that when you form a guild and you're small, people will join you just so that they can have somebody to talk to level up to where they can get to the big high level so that they can jump off and go do the real raid and stuff with everybody else. And they call them farm guilds, that you're there just to facilitate leveling somebody, and then they're going to leave you at the end. I don't know if there's a way to fix that, but I hated that in World of Warcraft, so they instituted the whole... the longer you're with a guild, the more points you earn, and then that keeps you there. So I kind of would like to see something like that.
Zaphos, what do you reckon? Incentives to stay with the same guild?
Yeah. In a game of consequence, there should be consequences to being in a particular guild, both good and bad. So I think that there absolutely should be guild mechanics such as Domo was just talking about, guild perks, guild benefits. I think it's a great system. How Blizzard are coming with that, I don't know. Recently they've been so terrible, but I think there's just some really good ideas around that. Having multiple guilds that you jump, so horrible. In a game like this, you want to be attached, and you want to have a flag, and you want to fly it. Mm-hmm. That's really, really, really important. I think it'd be really interesting to see if they decide to go with a guild player studio account, so that you have the ability to contribute to templates and things that you want to sell as a guild for real money, and then use those real monies for something else.
And the guild leader hikes off all the cash.
Yeah. I mean, just take that with a grain of salt. I don't necessarily mean that explicitly, but systems that allow for guilds to become powerful within the game, that's going to be really important. Obviously, the ability to, as we already know will exist, cooperatively build and set up cities, in effect, would be really, really cool. The ability for guilds to have different ways to control or influence trade, as well as the ability for guilds to create their own AI for their players to direct and help them be guided on what they want to do as a team.
You do that.
Things like that are really, really cool.
Teach them how to play better and all that.
Yeah, I think a guild should be more than a monologue of conversation between the guild and its players, right? I think it should be much more a guild is a functioning system within the game that influences the world. And that's something I really want to see, so that the guild can set actions that its members will accomplish. The guild can set goals that will be accomplished and have consequences. The guild can influence rallying calls. The guild can set their own rallying calls. All sorts of things like that.
Hold on, everyone just said the sound just got fixed, and I have not touched a thing. My hand has been on my desk the entire time.
I made a pact with a demon that I summoned
I saw
off camera.
You all right, let me turn it down then for everybody. Hold on. I'm going to turn it down. I don't know what changed because I didn't change anything. So
weird.
I'll turn it down.
Maybe loose connection or something.
It's weird.
Yeah, well, I agree with what Zaphos said. I've said before that I would like to see a much more complex array of ways that players can group together, not just as sort of 5-man parties that we've seen before, but groups with more permanence, but groups that come together for for specific tasks and for specific types of things. So you can have your large guild that's part of a huge alliance that, controls territory on like a whole half of one continent. And then as you go down, you can sort of break that down into smaller parts and maybe be part of a smaller adventuring party, a ship, a crew on a ship. Or, I always talk about the caravan guards, so you can have like someone who runs an actual business, like a caravan guards thing that merchants hire to help move their produce, but then at the same time you can be part of a larger guild that's maybe more of a social thing. But I'd like to see a more complex structure of the ways that players can group together more permanently.
All right,
if you see what I mean.
We're getting the sign here with the wrap it up.
That's the wrap it up sign.
That's the wrap it up sign. Okay, so yeah, that's a good spot to stop anyway, because that was our last question that we had in the chat there. Everybody, we will be putting this out as a audio only stream for those who like to listen to us rattle on their iPod or whatever it is they're listening to it on. Also, we are going to be loading you up on both my page and the EQNexus page for YouTube, and maybe your guys' page, I don't know. But yeah, that's where we will have this. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Thank you, Locke. Thank you, Zaphos.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
fun.
Yeah, so we will see you all very, very soon, and make sure you go over to EQNexus.com and check out all the great stuff over there. We will see you all very soon.
Come let us know how much you hate us.
Exactly.
We always enjoy that.
Well, we didn't have too many things go wrong tonight, so it wasn't too bad.
I've had a great time. I think we've had a really good show.
Your cam was working awesome the whole time.
Fantastic.
I don't know. I'm sorry about the audio thing, guys. I thought it was fixed, but whatever. All right. We will see you all very, very soon. Until next time, Geekdomo and pals here saying, see ya.
Thanks for coming.
Bye. There we go.
Yay!
We're done. At least I think. Let's see.